and then we'll get to see the replay of exactly how it went wrong.
Well, dear Kimi, we'll leave you alone now. It says on the side of the car they won't. They'll be coming to his aid to help him get back and make sure that he's okay. But look at the damage at the rear, to the rear wing. Around turn 13 we go now. That's quite a whack.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's done quite a bit of damage for what was, when you were riding on board, it seemed quite a tame, gentle little spin. But because obviously it's a corner, a bit like a street circuit, really, in that part, where the barrier is so close to it, because we've got the marina just the other side of the circuit. There's no room for error, as Kimi unfortunately found out.
Yeah, left to rear, sure.
Copy.
Yeah, the Ferrari's really struggling to fire the tyres up, aren't they? So gas it up.
And that is Nicholas Latifi in the Williams, and he is out, as you can see, going into the barrier. And that is a pretty hefty shunt into the wall.
So he's applied the throttle coming out of Acqua Minerale, climbing the hill towards the high chicane, the Variante Alta, and obviously lit the rear axle up.
So we saw Latifi going off. Oh, he's made contact there.
Oh, that was a big impact, wasn't it?
Contact
so it was actually
with Mazepin. So after his misadventures on the formation, going off where Leclerc went off on the formation lap, and in a few hundred meters time, out of the race. And Martin, oh, and that was Nikita Mazepin, or him.
Now we're going to see the other point of view. Right, that's not Mazepin's fault. That's the car recovering back onto the track, and obviously Nicholas Latifi not realising somebody was around him. You can't see a whole lot in your mirrors when there's that much spray.
No. Right down to the check. Oh, and that's Max Verstappen! Max Verstappen on the main straight, now out of this race. Sergio Perez leads, Sebastian Vettel up into the podium places. Back in 2018 with a tyre failure just a few laps from the end. History's repeated it this year, it's Verstappen. Pirelli have gone one step softer with the tyre compounds for the SI, didn't they, on the rears, Paul, from...
but they changed the construction for this year, Crofty. They're a lot confident and told that this was the only necessary way with the downforce at these. 20
PSI, the pressure was 19 on Friday, so it went up for Max Verstappen, who hasn't put a foot wrong today. It's this 3.7 miles track, and it's a 35. Oh, we've got Yuki Tsunoda and a red flag, and also Carlos Sainz. They must have had it coming to Charles Leclerc, who's crashed in Monaco last time, will see himself on pole for a second race running. It's his teammate who's involved with Yuki Tsunoda. So we're on board now with Yuki Tsunoda. First time
even goes on the brakes.
Pushing too hard, but what happened then to Carlos? He then locks up and slides his way.
That'll be a gearbox.
So did the crash of Tsunoda catch And could that have been part of the reason? Ferrari are not celebrating Carlos Sainz losing a front
Only by
wing.
100th though, wasn't it? So he's been able to do 2 laps. Good. Oh, that's a big one.
That is
Big
Mick Schumacher. And a big one coming out of Casino Square. And as you can see there, the left rear of that Haas is, well, there's no wheel attached to it. It's looking in a very sorry state. It's a red flag. That's the session over. And that is now a huge race against time for those Haas mechanics to get that car ready for qualifying. And if they do, then that will be their version of winning the Monaco Grand Prix, quite frankly. That is a proper race against time. So, through Massenet into Casino Square. Back end's just gone.
It's been unfortunate, but listen, just carried a bit too much speed. That's what the fine margins of this sport and driving cars, you know, you want to be sliding, but when it gets out of control, there's just nothing there.
Well, good close-up there for those on the balcony and those in the grandstands, and there are fans here in Monaco this weekend getting the best view trackside. And we're getting the view now, the Haas being winched away by the crane.
But just not on the pace the last 2 races.
Carlos Sainz and Scary chicane.
Stopped.
Oh,
he's lost the front. He's had a hit there.
He has.
Red flag for the session.
We did this in Zandvoort, didn't he, as well?
He did.
In the morning before qualifying, but
Yeah, it's right in the middle of it, isn't it? He's obviously lost it on the left,
See the
ran
marks.
wide,
these went into the wall pretty
and
hard, I
slammed
think.
into the wall quite hard, yeah.
I think he seems to be getting a little bit frustrated, Carlos, doesn't he?
Yeah, he had a massive crash.
Good to hear him and see him moving around.
Yeah, just the curve, isn't it? Curve on the power.
Oh, you heard him go on the loud pedal when he was in there, so that shows you how hard that is. I mean, that when you stand on the throttle mid-crash, that shows that your body's kind of,
Not in control.
you've lost control of it.
Yeah.
But it's a wall. But you know, this is where when you're in Parc Fermé, you can't afford to do things like that. I think he's actually got away pretty lightly. It's hit head on.
Yeah.
Floor looks okay. It's just obviously both suspension, but it's whether the monocoques.
Yeah, hopefully
sustained
that
it.
nose is absorbed
Certainly
it's that wheel, isn't it?
the back of the nose is there, so the crash structure's done its job.
I think the wheel.
In sector 16 of the track, and red
red
flag.
flag.
Somebody must be in the wall.
And it is the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. Now, he was going to the back of the grid anyway. He hasn't progressed from Q1 in Mexico since 2017. He was out in Q1 in Austin, and he has, exiting the final corner, the Peraltada, had quite a big impact with the barriers.
Are you okay, Lance?
Yeah, okay.
Well, all the way, isn't he?
Yeah, stick with it. He's on the dirty part of the track. Problem is, you can see the dust. And yeah, that kind of acceleration off the barriers. So he's got wide, can't get it back onto line, and straight to the scene of the
Barriers?
Well, if you haven't ever been out there on that weekend.
Is he okay?
Yeah, copy. He's out the car.
Lights out and away we go again. And Verstappen and Hamilton have got a better start. And Hamilton goes into the first corner as Bottas looks up and then forces Hamilton wide as Esteban Ocon gets ahead of Lewis. And that's Sergio Perez who's been tagged. And there's another incident involving George Russell. Verstappen in the lead from Esteban Ocon.
And I wouldn't be at all surprised, and that's the second Haas tonight. There's been smash in there too. We think he and Charles Leclerc got together.
Very much so. Oh, no. You don't want to see that. Just going into this race, several drivers were expressing their incidents. They would be arriving at the scene of it with action. And that is what happened there. George Russell was the car ahead. Now,
I wonder if that's clipping.
Oh, no, and that is an accident, and it is Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. And as I said, here in Baku, you are only a few centimetres away from a big accident, and Lance Stroll, who might well have been coming into the pits, the only driver who hadn't pitted in this race so far, has left a huge amount of debris on the track, and a safety car, you would imagine, is inevitable at this stage. You might just benefit at the restart. Let's have a look and see what happened to Lance Stroll. And yeah, absolutely no chance of avoiding the accidents. I said potentially coming into the pits. He was the only one who hadn't pitted so far, 30 laps into this race. Oh, that's an impact, isn't it?
Of course, what we don't know if it was debris, whether it was a puncture.
Whoa.
But Pierre Gasly was close there, wasn't he?
Wasn't he just? I mean, it was lap 30. Pirelli say those hard tyres can do 40 laps, so well within the parameters. Hamilton comes out onto the racetrack now. The big key. No, he's not. And there's Max Verstappen right behind Hamilton. Wheel to wheel, Hamilton and Verstappen! And this time Verstappen and Hamilton out! As Hamilton came from his pit stop, and in their desperation to stay ahead and to get ahead, the two are out of the Italian Grand Prix.
And Lewis is trying to get out of there, look.
That's what you get when you don't leave the space.
Have a little look then at what happened. Hamilton on the right-hand side, Verstappen have enough space in the initial part of that chicane.
Max hasn't done anything wrong there. Lewis can't cross over until the white line. Max's car hit the...
Back into the path of Lewis and then up into the air when his car makes contact.
And there we go, across the top of Lewis, the rollover who does its job, and the halo. And then I think Lewis got, obviously Lewis's rear wing, no wonder Bono told him to switch it off, the rear wing. That was a scary moment
even
there.
with the right tyre of Max Verstappen's Red Bull rubbing against by the looks of it, and Hamilton certainly trying to get as low in his cockpit as he...
Wow, that was a very, very near miss there for Lewis Hamilton.
Got a yellow flag out there, and that is the reason we have a Haas into the barriers. Valtteri Bottas has just gone quickest with a 1:17.0, but as you can see, Mick Schumacher against the barriers, and now a red flag as well. Last time we saw Mick Schumacher against the barriers, Paul Ricard, of course, the French Grand Prix, that was in qualifying one.
If you're not going to crash at any time, just don't make it FP3, but yeah, still a learning year for me.
That is what happened to Mick Schumacher. We've seen others make mistakes up there, but as you rightly said, a long way before the corner, that was heading to the barriers.
I think the rear tyre temps would have been quite hot because he's already been sliding around. We saw the previous couple of corners, and when he's arrived there at 11, I'm not making excuses for him because...
Is he okay? He went off.
Yes, he's okay. He's out of the car walking.
And Hungarian Grand Prix is underway. Who is going to get off the start fastest? Max Verstappen into the middle of the track, but Lando Norris on the inside alongside Bottas. He's taken the position, and the Red Bull up into P2 behind Lewis Hamilton, who holds on to the lead as they're 10 to down. They've touched. We've got cars all over the road and off the road there. 5 cars, 6 cars, and more contact there between the Ferrari and the second McLaren of Daniel Ricciardo. Lewis Hamilton untroubled out front, but it's all kicking off behind him.
The championship rival is out of the race for Lewis Hamilton. It all stems from Lando Norris crashing into Bottas. Has now got an Alpine going up the inside of the stricken McLaren there as they're all trying to weave their way through.
Verstappen's not out of the race, he's back there, he's just got damage.
As we see the start again, it all stemmed. Watch for Norris inside of Bottas. Max is well clear, along with locks up into the back of Norris. Norris into Verstappen.
Yeah, I think Perez took a massive hit to his cooling system. I think that's because his radiator was absolutely bust, and he's furious, and some big penalties.
And Verstappen coming into the pits now. So we've got Perez getting out of his car on the pit lane channel. Now he's switched onto the intermediates.
So this up here over the white line into the back of Norris. It's just wheel straight.
Well, look at the damage there on the front of Bottas's car. Now that would be Bottas. He hadn't driven the car in these conditions. It was fast, and Roacel foam spread all the way down turn 1. That could result in punctures.
Go through that dip.
Someone's had a big moment, and it's one of the Ferraris, I'm being told. And this is coming. Oh, that is going into turn 3. It's got a red flag, and it's Carlos Sainz. And you can see the Red Bull and the Aston Martin and the Alpine on the scene slowing down. But Carlos Sainz are coming out of that little kink into turn 3.
Oh, sorry guys, I don't know what happened.
Now,
I should imagine Crofty's lost the rear going through turn 2.
Yeah.
We've seen a few cars get a little bit light there on the rear.
You can see now.
That's 1B, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then that's 2. Yeah, just very late in how he's lost the rear. Yeah, so actually
Well, that has gone on the
sideways in.
side.
Yeah,
That
and
is
the rear
a really
did take a
big
knock.
hit.
Yeah.
and he's doing about 110, 115 miles an hour at that stage before he loses the rear. And that's a hefty impact, and I would be worried if I was Carlos Sainz about my gearbox there.
I think he's carried a bit too much speed through the corner and it understeered. He went a little bit wider than he wanted to, and then that camber change has caught him out.
The weird thing is it's quite a slow oversteer. It's quite a slow moment, isn't it?
Come around slowly, yeah. He'll be kicking himself about that one. And
this blind, long right-hander, super quick. Just a little bit of throttle lift through there.
Oh, that's another Williams, and that is a bigger impact, and that's Nicholas Latifi very much out of qualifying, and that is another red flag, and I dare say that could be this session not resuming as well, because there's only 1 minute and 38 seconds left on the clock. But first and foremost, let's hope Nicholas Latifi's okay.
Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?
That is a big impact for Nicholas Latifi. Latifi, he's okay. He'll be winded, he'll be a little bit battered and bruised. He's out of qualifying, as is Yuki Tsunoda, Lando Norris, Lance Stroll and George Russell. Big look then as he drops downhill into
the dirt there. He's right on the edge or just over, and he does the same on the dirt on the turn in. There's a car on the inside. It never helps because it kind of vision into that corner, and he's going to put a wheel on the dirt, and that's what spun him.
We get to Latifi, and as soon as the rear got away from him, he's seen of a barrier. That's a lot of damage to that. You always have to hope, as we did with Carlos Sainz today, gearbox has survived that impact.
Those accidents when you hit the side, but that's a massive amount of G-force, and you can't have your bones into the wall, and he'll have a headache for a day or two after that.
So far so good as Giovinazzi keeps ahead of is Mick Schumacher into the infamous now, turn 21, 22, complex to the barriers now. We've got our first safety car.
Are you okay, Mick? Are you okay?
Sorry about that.
Did he go too slowly? That is how Mick Schumacher ended.
It's very like Charles Leclerc, isn't it? In the back end, stepped out on the way in, straight into a cul-de-sac at that point, and you can see how well.
Tech-Pro barrier to the right-hand side. You've also got a Formula One car arriving into turn 22. Around about 100.
And then you've lost your last run. So if it comes down to the last run, I definitely think that we'll see. It might be prudent to go out first rather than...
Right, we've got a red flag, and I think Charles Leclerc might have hit the wall down towards... Oh, and he has. And he looks like he's gone in quite hard. Down at turn 12.
12, 6.
The marshals... He's getting out the car.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I am.
It's fairly comprehensive.
Yes, look at the debris, look at the wreckage, but most importantly, look at the fact that Charles Leclerc has managed to jump out of the car and doesn't seem to be suffering any ill effects of what could be a very high-speed shunt into the Tech-Pro barriers. Little look now approaching turn 21 and 22, and rear's gone quite early on there, isn't it?
That is your worst case nightmare. I was talking to Martin about it earlier as we went around the circuit. I was saying that is the place you really didn't want to go off. In fact, if you went off slightly later, if you hit the barrier slightly later, it could ricochet across the track. But that was a full-on loss of control. And
that's about, Damon, I'd say about 150 miles an hour. He's approaching that corner.
It's turned in, and of course it's just started to rotate. He's carried too much speed or whatever. He's lost his balance, and
sorry, guys.
That's all he can say.
A little bit higher pressure opens the grooves. Did that go round? Did the McLaren go round?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. That's Lando Norris. Lando Norris has had a big off, and you revolving and turning around as everybody screens and waits to see. Lando Norris was saying it's getting very, very wet. We've got standing, and there is Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin. He too was worried about the conditions. Lando is moving.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Oh, I see. It just started to wander into an oversteer and action that actually took him into the barriers. Well, Lando says a bit of aquaplaning, but it didn't stop him going for it. Moved into a bit of an oversteer, and as he corrected it, it suddenly had a too much steering lock on at that moment, trying to correct it, just took a big left turn, and well, it's the sudden stop that really hurts. And yeah, in the right direction as it went down the hill. Tethers on the wheels, the cast wheels flying up. We have lost one wheel, but the other three, the spectators, and that's what the tethers do.
And Marcin Bukowski is with us from the Alpine pit wall, the executive director.
Yeah, I was going to say, just upwind